The Buga Sphere, many call a hoax, just turned on in front of freaked out scientists.
It is an artifact that was most likely made by someone other than humans.
The results we'll explore are so shocking, it might turn you into a hardcore believer, unless a new and little-known side of the story finally proves to you that this sphere is in fact a hoax. Starting with the first lab test in a series that actually gets crazier as we move on. To begin, Buga Sphere's guardians took it to a lab with an actual scientist. They all get in a room with the sphere and begin playing sound frequencies from 60 Hz up to 20,000 Hz. After casually destroying everyone's hearing, something unexpected happened. Seriously. At around 190 Hz, the instruments started to react.
We're at 190 Hz. Well, there's a reaction here.
The temperature shifted slightly.
Temperature 25.9.
Went up a little bit. The temperature went up a little bit.
The electromagnetic field changed.
Here it is increasing. Here it is marking. Here it is detecting a field here. There it is. We are next to the sphere.
It was as if the sphere had heard the sound and it was answering back. Not long ago, Jaime Maussan supposedly got a highly respected university involved in analyzing the sphere. Jaime said that UNAM, the university, reported seeing what may be fiber optics on it, which would be pretty wild because they are used for sending and receiving information, at least in human terms. If this is that type of tech, though, could it be part of why the sphere reacted to sound frequencies? Next, we gotta check test number 2, a mind-blowing moment. This time they tried ancient sounds, mantras. Laura Bedoya took inspiration from ancient Asian texts that describe mysterious flying objects. Crafts so advanced they seem to match modern ideas of spaceships. Some versions of these stories mention activation through sound, which may have included singing, or at least that's how she and others interpret them.
Because since we saw that it had the figure of the cilantro on the chip, I realized that the sound of the Sri Yantra is Om. So, I looked for mantras that had to do with that sound.
Look, I know nothing about these stories have been proven, but the details are very impressive, and the potential evidence left behind is surreal. So, could sacred sounds wake up and turn on Buga like our ancestors potentially did with ancient machines? To test it, the woman stood in front of the sphere and began to chant sacred verses.
Dharma Sanstapanartaya.
The room immediately changed. The energy sensor lit up red. Buga's temperature somehow remained cool, but the air around it warmed up. The mantras weren't just random chants. Scholars think they're about 2,000 years old. Then came the weirdest part of the entire test, and the most curious results. They tried a conch shell. The moment that sound came out, the meters spiked again. The electromagnetic sensors turned red. It appears to send signals back.
Something must have been activated. Thank you very much. Look at the temperature, 27.6. Yes. Here the ambient temperature is already 293.
But the temperature already looks 293. Yes, in other words, the ambient temperature is higher than expected.
Next, they brought the sphere to Jaime Maussan's studio to prove that these studies are actually very serious. The plan was to see if Buga would answer again. And it did. The sensors spiked again. Suddenly they experienced a shocker. A radio signal, 90.8 megahertz, clear. repeating.
The antenna is transmitting a radio frequency, and it does so at the value you see above, 90.8 megahertz at a very low power.
The sphere appeared to be emitting something. What could it be? Sure, they didn't know that side of the story that could bring everything down, but for now, I think that we can focus on how legit or not these tests and results could be, beginning with the potential legitimacy of it. I think that if you're open-minded, it is possible the Buga Sphere contains technologies that respond not just to sound, but intention, emotion, heart frequencies. The singing lady, she said she felt it in her heart. And let's not forget, there is a supposed study UNAM, the university, did on the existence of microfibers. So is that how the sphere receives the audio and whatever data it could be getting? Except the report never claimed these are 100% fiber optics. It clearly says maybe, maybe not. However, some of us recognize these. We have seen these supposed fiber optics before, and that's because they look like light reflections from a microscope. So I tested our suspicion on reflective surfaces, and as you can see, I got images almost identical, if not identical, to the ones on the Buga Sphere. That's when I got really suspicious and decided to ask UNAM, the university, if their studies on Buga were even real or if someone faked the whole report. About a month later, they replied. Well, take a look at the answer, and I know it's in Spanish, but here's pretty much what it says. So I asked who at the university handled the studies. And indeed, they said that a small UNAM lab, the Institute of Materials, ran some tests because the owner paid for it. And so I asked if there was an official UNAM report or study, and they said no, nothing publicly released or peer-reviewed. And of course, I asked them if by any chance UNAM backed the claims by Jaime Maussan, and they said no, absolutely not. This was just a paid analysis. This was not scientific research, not even close. We're actually getting closer to new evidence that may leave Buga in a pile of forgotten hoaxes. But first, we gotta talk about the shaky parts of this test. The test begins with one big problem. They never did it without the sphere. That's a big deal, because how do you know it's the sphere causing all that blinking and beeping if you never tested without it? And I may be wrong, but regardless of quality, these can light up from a bunch of things. Wi-Fi, cell phones, walkie-talkies, even the lights in the room. How about the changes in temperature they registered? It could indeed be caused by the sphere, or it could just be body heat. People crowded around it, breathing on it, holding electronics right next to the metal. Remember, they were also playing with sound waves, which can also raise temperature, but not enough to credit for spike in meters. I think it's also super important to not just focus on the technical aspects of this test, but also the lineup of experts, because there's only one real scientist involved in these tests. The others are entrepreneurs, TV personalities, and arts people. But it's odd that even with a scientist, they still didn't follow basic testing standards. But there is one thing you and I will follow, and that is the story I've been hyping from the beginning, because it's going to change how you see the Buga Sphere for the rest of your life. Because a new sphere is in town. This one is not like any other we have seen. This new sphere was recorded by a newly formed group of Colombian UFO hunters. Actually, you may recognize them. One is the man who recently reported seeing another sphere near the original one, like 30 minutes from it. The other man is the one who gave the Buga Sphere to Jaime Maussan. He got it from Jose, the one who supposedly found it originally. But what's most impressive about this sphere is what furious and heartbroken people are pointing at 7 minutes and 18 seconds on this video published by Jaime Maussan. As I hope you can clearly see, there seems to be something similar to a fishing line holding the sphere. This is a hypothesis the bunkers had from the beginning. Do you think it is a coincidence that what seems to be a fake levitating sphere was captured by the same man who originally showed up with the Buga Sphere? Could this be a big misunderstanding? Do you think that this video has nothing to do with the validity of the original Buga Sphere, or is this enough for you to throw it in the pile of hoaxes? Thank you for existing, and I cannot wait to see you soon.